If you're a brand new Whoop user and you're kind of confused and overwhelmed by all the information that's listed in the app, then stick around for today's video where I dive through all of my personal information to share with you and help you better understand Whoop. What's up everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of Excellence in Motion. I'm Doc Caden and I'm here to inspire you to achieve your potential through movement. If you're new to the channel, I do videos on health education, movement tips, and fitness gear reviews just like this one. So if that stuff interests you, please consider subscribing and liking today's video. It helps a ton. I first off want to thank all of you who do leave comments on the videos. It's sometimes hard to want to continue making things, especially when you're a small YouTuber, but having those comments and that positivity really drives me and keeps me wanting to make videos for you guys. So keep it up, I really appreciate it, thank you so much. So just like the intro to the video suggests, I'm gonna walk through some of the data that's on my Whoop app and share it with you guys in a live feed so that you can sort of see what the metrics are associated with my health and fitness and sort of listen to me dive into what those things mean and what they can mean for you. If you're new to the whole thing, watching today's video will sort of help you understand some of those nuances. Today's video is not sponsored by Whoop, but I do have a referral link down below in the description that if you click on, will give you 1 month of free membership with Whoop. It gives you an opportunity to try out Whoop for free, see if you like it, and then if you want to move on from there, you can select one of their different membership options. It also helps me out by giving me a free month on my Whoop membership so that I can continue to make these types of videos for you guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. I'm gonna put the information right up here on this side of the screen so you can sort of scroll along with me as I dive into all these different tabs. If you've got your Whoop app open with you while you're watching this by any chance, feel free to just kind of click on these things as we go so that you can understand what it is that we're looking at as we're going through it. So the first thing that you see on the screen is the home page in the Whoop app that I've adjusted to reflect last week's performance. This way I can sort of show you a comprehensive overlook of what an entire week of fitness and measuring everything looks like. So as you can see on this screen, this is the information from Sunday, June 6th, and it's gonna show 7 days prior to that. My recovery on this day was actually pretty good. So that bar shows where you are in your recovery. You can either be green, yellow, or red. I happen to have a really good recovery today, and I ended up with a 5.2 total day strain with 7.5 hours of sleep. But this is just the overview page. I really like to get more into what the specifics are for an entire week as I go back and look through what does everything look like. So as you swipe down, you can actually see an overview of your strain related to recovery across a 7-day period. So the overview states that I've maintained a high strain while maintaining healthy recovery. Great job capitalizing on a week when your body was ready for strain. Fitness gains are made this way. So you can see on this bar graph, I like to show the numbers. You can tap on it and make the numbers go away, but I like to tap on it so I can see what those metrics look like. Real quick before we move on, if you're getting value out of today's video, please let me know by liking today's video and leaving a comment down below. What are the things that you are hopeful for when it comes to starting your journey with Whoop? And if you're a current Whoop user, what are some things that you know about the app and your insights there that maybe I don't know and didn't touch on that you can share with everybody else who watches? For the most part, on the days that I was pretty well recovered, I got a decent amount of strain, but overall, on the days like Monday the 31st, when my recovery was a little bit lower, I had a pretty high day strain. I did some pretty intense activities on those days. So for me, I just kind of like to see how these two relate to each other. The bottom section kind of shows you in a bar graph what your frequency of all of those different areas are. But for me, I just like to see how close I am with my strain and my recovery together. If you swipe to the right, you'll see in the strain category different levels for metrics related to your strain. I'm currently on the calories one, which is pretty self-explanatory. It just shows you how many calories you burned in the entire day. The middle tab is for your average heart rate. This is calculated over the course of the entire day. So when you start a day, your average heart rate will be pretty low and pretty close to what your resting heart rate was from the night before. But layering in things like activities and just moving around throughout the day will kind of adjust those numbers all together. In general, a lower average heart rate is pretty good, but it also depends on what you did that day. You can tell on Sunday the 6th, I had an average heart rate of 57, but if we swipe back over to the overview, you can tell that my strain was 5.2. I didn't do anything that day, I had no activity. But on a harder day, like Monday the 31st, my average heart rate was 65 because I had a 16.2 strain. So those are some cool metrics to look at when it comes to your average heart rate over time. The last tab in the strain section is the day strain tab, and it just shows you a bar graph of what your day strain looks like relative to each day itself. So you can tell that the graph is a little bit weighted. The first 10 points of strain, pretty easy to get to, but as you pass 14, it gets a little bit harder and harder and harder for you to reach those higher levels of strain. Next, let's go ahead and swipe on over to recovery. As we slide over to this bar graph, you can see where it lists in colors your recovery scores for the week. Kind of gives you your ranges for what's considered red, yellow, and green. I have 3 greens and 4 yellows. Thankfully this week I didn't have any reds. We tap over on the next one for heart rate variability. This is the one that tends to get people a little bit confused. Heart rate variability is just the difference between the fast and slow beats of your heart when you're recovering and when you're resting. When we think about the nervous system, we can split it up into 2 different subcategories very simply, either fight or flight or rest or digest. Heart rate variability shows us the difference between where we're hanging out in our nervous system. So a higher heart rate variability number tells us that we have a greater variability between our rest and digest and our fight and flight, which means that our body is primed and ready to go to handle anything that's thrown at us. A lower heart rate variability means that we're spending a little bit too much time in the fight or flight area, and our variability is very slow in that, so we're very stressed, we're lacking recovery, our body's not primed and ready to handle a lot of other stuff like workouts. So having a higher heart rate variability is a better indicator of your recovery than having a low heart rate variability. If we go back to our overview, Tuesday and Sunday were green days on recovery. So that shows that the higher heart rate variability produced a better recovery score. You couple that with lower resting heart rates on the resting heart rate tab, and you sort of understand what plays a factor in getting a better recovery score. Respiration rate is the final one on here. This one's a little bit different. It takes into account what your normal breathing rate is when you're sleeping, and higher respiration rates over a longer period of time can be indicative of sickness, and we saw that a lot with COVID this last year. So looking at this graph, a 17.4 for me was above normal. So if that had continued over the next couple of days, I might have had to consider looking at what my health was like. Was I starting to get sick? Is there something going on? Allergies, whatever. It sort of leveled itself out, so we're totally fine there. The last tab on the Whoop app is sleep. So as we scroll over to sleep, we're gonna see here that you get a first bar graph that gives you your overall average sleep performance in percentages. So for the most part, I stayed above 70% for my sleep, which is pretty good for me. But as you can see right there on the Tuesday, I got a 47% in my sleep. Tuesdays happen to be one of my coaching days when I have to wake up early to go coach, and I might have studied the night before, so leading into that just didn't really give me much room for sleeping. So as we tap on that middle tab, you can see a bar graph that is one of my favorite bar graphs to look at when it comes to recovery, and it shows the amount of sleep that I got versus the amount of sleep that I needed. For the most part, I never get the amount of sleep that I need because I'm so stressed all the time and I'm doing lots of stuff and I never get to bed on time. But you can tell on that Tuesday, I got 4 hours and 24 minutes of sleep and I needed 9 hours and 16 minutes. So that produced a pretty poor sleep performance. But the closer you can get to matching the need of sleep that you have with the sleep that you actually get, the better chance you have of having a much higher performance in your recovery score. The last one, looking at time in bed, this shows the length of time that you spent in your bed. So what you want to look for here is consistency across the board. Are you going to bed at the same time? Are you waking up around the same time? More consistency in your sleep is going to produce better recovery scores over time. Those are the much more detailed areas of the Whoop app. If you actually swipe down on the screen, it's going to go back up into more of these overview looks. So on the sleep side of things, you can see the sleep performance. It gives me a 78% for that day. Okay, it's not over a 7-day period, it's for that day specifically. So 78%, I needed 9 hours and 33 minutes of sleep. I only got 7 hours and 27 minutes, and that's where we get that. If you tap on the hours of sleep icon, it'll actually show you what your sleep looked like that night before. So it gives a cool little heart rate graph. You can look and see how many times you had disturbances through the night, what your efficiency was, which was the difference between how many times you were awake versus how much you were asleep. And it also gives you a respiratory rate there too. The time in bed is a great way for you to look and see how much REM sleep, deep sleep, all that kind of stuff that you're getting right there. It's a great way for you to get an overview of all the stuff that you want to look at regarding that. If you go back and then tap on the green sleep needed icon, this will show you your baseline level of sleep, which should be calculated over the first month of having Whoop. And then what are the factors that played into you needing as much sleep as you needed? The first one that you can see is recent strain. So more harder workouts will increase the amount of strain that you have in a day and will add to the amount of sleep that you need that night. So that night I needed 35 minutes of extra sleep because of the strain that I had for that day and previous days before that. So the more strain you accumulate, the more sleep your body will need to aid in recovery. Sleep debt, this is the biggest problem for me. I don't get enough sleep across a consistent time frame, so I just consistently stack on sleep debt. My baseline level of sleep is 7 hours and 44 minutes, but I'm constantly around 9.5 hours because I never get enough sleep from the night before. It's really hard to catch up for me, and it's an area of improvement that I think that I can work on. Recent naps is a way for you to decrease the amount of sleep that you need. So if you take a nap throughout the day, that'll add to the amount of sleep that you get towards your sleep need. So if I had taken a 30-minute nap, I would only need 9 hours of sleep instead of 9.5 hours of sleep. Clicking out of that, we can scroll back over to recovery. Again, this gives an overview of your recovery for the day. In the day strain section, you can see how much activity that you've put in for that day and what those workouts have done for your overall day strain. So what we might do here is scroll backwards a day and look at this 14.7 that I had from the day before. Right now, Whoop is calculating what are the things that played a factor in that day strain, but we can click on the activity itself, which was CrossFit training, and actually see what that workout looked like. I had spikes in heart rate with some nice recovery periods, and it gives me a cool little overview at the top that you can read on your own. This is a great way for you to sort of surmise what you did in your activity and see how it plays into your overall day strain for the day. So that's it, guys. That's a quick walkthrough of everything that goes on in the Whoop app, and hopefully it was a little bit more descriptive and giving you an idea of what is in that app and what you can use that information for when it comes to figuring out your body and figuring out your training methodology so that you can adjust for poor recovery days and great recovery days to enhance your performance overall. That's all I have for you guys today. If you want to catch more videos like this, please be sure to click on over here. And until next time, go out, do good things, and don't forget to move. I'll catch you in the next video.